marketing. You know, we do a lot to be able to reach our customers and help them with the needs that are not being met. And we're very excited to, you know, be a part of the Doing Business in Nigeria conference. This is a great platform for us to talk about, you know, transforming economic threats into business success, you know, engaging talent, being able to truly grow Nigerian businesses that are going from local businesses to global businesses. Thank you so much.
Oh, okay. Thank you for unmuting me. So yeah, thanks a lot, Yewande. So there's a question here from Kelvin, and he wants to know if he can use Flutterwave to receive payment from Airbnb as a host.
Hi, Kelvin. Not just yet, but that's something that we're working on, and when it becomes available, we'll definitely let you know.
Awesome. Thank you once again, Yewande, and thanks to your team for being a part of this event. And thank you for making payments easier for us here in Nigeria. So we wish you well, and we hope to see you again next year. Thank you. Okay, so right now we'll move on to the second session. Second session would be focused on how we can engage talents for business continuity. And the keynote speaker for this session is a renowned HR leader who is currently the HR director for P&G Australia and New Zealand. She's a strategic HR leader, author, and a certified coach with a lot of experience working across different countries: Australia, Europe, US, India, Middle East, and Africa. She's the co-founder of Trailblazer FEM, a Pan-African hub that is dedicated to the advancement of career women. She's also a fellow of the Institute of Management Consulting and currently a doctoral research student specializing in human resources. Her name is Mofoluwasho Ilevbare, but we popularly know her as Fofo. Fofo loves to write, and she has written over 18 books. Fofo is a mentor and a mother to a lot of people. Fofo, we're glad to have you here today. So you have to unmute. Fofo, you have to unmute. Fofo, you have to unmute. You're still muted. If you can hear us.
Might be the connection. She's unmuted.
She's unmuted.
Yeah.
Fofo, do you want to check your audio settings?
Okay, can you hear me now?
Awesome. You are live.
All right. That's the thing about technology. We tested this before the session started, and I guess I got carried away with the awesome insights we had from the last session. So thank you to all the panelists and the speakers from that session. And it's wonderful to be here with you on Doing Business in Nigeria conference.
Awesome. So the floor is yours, Fofo.
Oh, absolutely. All right. Are you going to share from your end for me?
We can give you the right to share. So we would make you a co-host so that you can share and then be in control of, you know.
All right. Just a minute. I'm going to go here now.
So we'll make you the co-host.
Okay. And I'm gonna do tell me if you can see my screen.
Okay. It's coming up.
All right.
Fofo, we
Can
can
you
see
see
your
my
screen,
screen?
so please.
Okay, excellent.
Absolutely.
All right, so I'm just gonna put that into full screen so I can hear everyone really well. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. It's interesting because we now live in a global world. I'm talking to you from Sydney, Australia. I trust that you can hear me well. I trust that you are doing well and keeping safe despite all the challenges we've had in the last 1 year. It's roughly about a year when the whole world kind of shut down with the COVID-19, but we trust that you are keeping safe. And listening to the last session, talking about businesses, running businesses in Nigeria, the challenges we're facing, the different angles that are in there. I know that we have all tried to find one way or the other to bring some solutions into issues. I'm hoping that we will continue the conversation, starting from that session about businesses, but now going into people. Something that Valentino said really well was the fact that people are one of the strategies that we need to equally focus on to make sure that we are building a business that lasts. All right, so I'm going to move to my slides. It's slightly difficult to project, but I hope you can see my screen. And I want to make it a little interactive for you very quickly. So if you can put in the chat box, what is one thing you learned about work or about life in the past 12 months? I just want to see a few comments in the chat box, if you can put it in there. What is one thing that you learned in the last 12 months, either about work or about life? And I'm going to go into the chat box to see if a few people would like to share. Work is where work is, absolutely. Work is where work is, absolutely. The dynamics of a work environment, yes, for sure. Working from home is equally as effective, yes, for sure. Life is unpredictable, absolutely. I see that. Yes, yes, keep going, keep going. I'm looking at your lessons. I'm looking at your lessons. I'm really trying to do my screen here, but yes, teachers are the real heroes. Absolutely. Work is home and home is work. Life is short, so relationship is key. Interested. Yes, life goes on irrespective of what we're going through. Thank you, everyone, for sharing. I'm sure if I had to go through every single person's comments, we will find a lot of lessons. But for sure, 2020 was a challenging year. And I'm sure when we said Happy New Year this year, we probably thought it was going to be, a lot of those things behind us. But we still have the pandemic challenges around us. And it's important to see how do we focus going forward from there. All right. So my next slide, I just want to mention a few things that's happened. As we know, this was a picture of the office before. And then, somehow the cheese moved and the office became more like a building without the people. And one other thing I thought I would entertain you with, which has already happened when I started this, mute or mute, don't mute or mute. We've all had our shares of being webinized and being Zoominized and all sorts all together. So maybe these are some of the familiar things you have seen, your Zoom meetings when you've got your audio and your Zoom meetings when you don't have them. And sometimes when, the staff meeting is over and you just have someone asking questions. There are so many situations, either homeschooling, that we've all had to go through. So what do we do? The topic is about engaging talents for business continuity. What do we do to make sure that our businesses can go on irrespective of the challenges we've had around us, and making sure that we can engage talents in that process? The very first thing I wanted to share with you, coming from an HR perspective, is for all the leaders who might be on the line. The very first thing when we talk about engaging talents, it starts with you as a leader. And I wanted to just highlight something by just, looking at the life of one of the best presidents in the US. If you look on the left, this was a picture of President Obama when he was elected into office. If you look on the right, this was his picture when he was giving his farewell speech after 8 years. In the chat box, tell me something you noticed or a difference you noticed in these two pictures very quickly. Anyone who can share in the chat box, is there a difference you notice between these two pictures? And I'm just going to go into the chat and see. Oh my goodness. You all seem to have told each other the answers. For sure, for sure. One of the biggest things that we realize, and it's coming from one of my coaches, John C. Maxwell, is everything rises and falls on leadership. And if you look at the picture on the left and the one on the right, one of the major differences you see is the effect of having to rule one of the, the most prestigious country in the world. And you can see the impact of the stress, you can see the impact of decision making, you can see the impact of even just natural aging coming into it. So I don't know about you, but I'm sure that in between last year and this year, if we had to take your picture, I'm hoping that somehow we can see that, the impact we're having is some of that mental health impact. There is some of that pressure of keeping the business going, making it profitable, engaging talents, and making sure that you are also fully in the right place. So I want to start by saying engaging talents for business continuity, it starts with you as a leader and acknowledging the things that you have experienced yourself during the last 12 months is very significant. If you want the business to continue, it really starts with you as a leader. And one of the questions I want to leave with you is really to think through, as I look back at the last 12 months and the experiences that I have had, what are the things that I will start, I will stop, and I will continue? Before you start talking about people and talents and the employees in your care, I want to challenge you to say, what are the things that, the lessons that I have learned in my space? That's why I started with that. Because I see that somehow many leaders are very eager to go back to the way it was before. We're talking about, let's go back to being normal. Let's get everybody back into the office. Let's get business going as it was before. But the reality is these challenges are still with us. And there are lessons we learned during the pandemic that we need not discard. So very importantly, I want you to think about business continuity starting with you. And as it starts with you, the question I want to ask you is, what am I going to do differently after this past 12 months? What have I learned about myself? What have I learned about my leadership? What have I learned about my employees? What have I learned about making business in tough situations? What are the things I need to do? What are the things I need to delegate? And what are the things I need to delete? Because first, it starts with you. If you are in a great place, body, soul, spirit, mentally, then it's easier for you to engage talents and continue with your business. So I hope that that's helpful for someone. Now, I know we have a lot of panelists, very experienced panelists who will help us to digest the topic. But I wanted to create the conversation or trigger some thoughts by sharing with you some tools for business and organizational success and give you some practical examples that I have found. I'm a Nigerian, but I moved into Australia just roughly about 2 years ago for work purposes. And, it's a temporary move. And one of the things that happened the moment I got here was immediately there was a whole bushfire series. If you have been watching the news, you would have heard about that in Australia 2 years ago. And then we went into the COVID lockdown. The key things we had to do very quickly was to start to experiment. What are the areas where we need to protect the business and protect employees and make sure that we can serve our customers as much as possible? And so these are 4 tools I want to talk about very quickly that have helped us in keeping the business going. We have actually doubled the business in the last 1 year. What are the tools that we have used? What are the techniques that have worked for us? What are the lessons we're learning, and how can you apply that as well into your business or organization? So let me run through it very quickly. The first one is the McKinsey 7S model. So when Valentino was talking, he shared different tools that are available in the space, and he touched on some of the ones I will share today. One of the first things we did as a team was to gather ourselves together and say, what is our business strategy for surviving this COVID situation? Which of our systems will not work anymore? Like having people in the office, having to run shuttles, doing different things that normally we could do face-to-face, but now we can't do anymore. What in our structure do we need to change? So a lot of the hierarchy started to dwindle. Like we made a flatter organizations where we had to say, leaders, come down from your high horse and every day connect with your people online, have those virtual corridor conversations. Those are things we had to break down within our structure. We have to look into skills. What skills do we have for employees to be able to work from home? Are they even digitized enough to know how to use the systems that will help us to keep the business going, to sell to our customers? What are the future skills that are required? And we had to start assessing that among ourselves. Then we said, what is the style of leadership we would use? What is the approach we would use in making sure that we keep the business going? How do we need to staff our people? How do we need to staff ourselves? And what are the shared values? What are the things that we feel that between leaders and employees, we share those values? Do we share loyalty together? Do we share the teamwork and effectiveness together? Is everybody working on the same boat, or some people just don't want to do the work anymore? What are the shared values that we want to say? Safety. And, one of the first things we said was that safety is #1 priority. In every single thing we will do, we'll make sure that the safety of our employees and our customers is priority. So all the decisions we were making with the COVID situation back and forth, we kept coming back to that point. Is it safe for our employees? Is it safe for our customers? Is it safe for our consumers? And those were things that were able to help us. So one of the steps we took was to have this 7S model, and we sat together in a room. It took us more than a day or more, but we went through each of these 7 steps and we gathered the team together to answer the questions. And from there, we created a business contingency plan, or people call it a business continuity plan, that addressed each of these issues. And that's what we started to implement. If I look at another tool that we used, and which I also encourage you to use as well, is the SWOT tool. We picked the SWOT tool because it's also a very easy and convenient tool to use. It just simply means you're looking into your organization and saying, what are the strengths that we're bringing to this? Where are our weaknesses? In the last panel session, they talked about it a lot. Where are our opportunities and where are the threats? I realized that when we understand the internal capabilities that we have, when we understand the resources that we have, and we understand where our weaknesses are, then it's easy for us to say, okay, what is it that we're doing very well? And how can we, use those strengths to challenge opportunities or the threats that we see? But sitting back and saying, oh, we're waiting for everything to go back to normal is not a solution. As they normally say, hope is not a strategy. So one of the things we had to do was to sit and say, what are the strengths we had? One of the things we realized is we sell essentials. So most of our products are things that people will find in their houses. So you have to wash your hands with soap. But we found out that things like shaving cream and all that, nobody was really shaving during the pandemic. So some products definitely were not going to be of priority during the pandemic. It was products of safety, of health, things about mental wealth and well-being. We had to create strategies that will promote those particular kind of products so we could sell them more for people. I'm sure you heard during the pandemic, the product that sold the most was toilet paper at the very beginning. And, in Australia, next to toilet paper, what sold next were contraceptives. It was incredible. And we had a product of contraceptives, and I'm telling you, we made so much money during the pandemic because next to toilet paper, what people were buying were contraceptives. Now you may wonder, why would people buy contraceptives during a pandemic? I'm sure you know the answer, and I'll keep it there for now. But definitely assessing our businesses and understanding what are the strengths that we have, what are the capabilities. Where are our people? Are our people digitized? Do they know how to use their computers? Do we need to change service providers? Do we need to help them with Wi-Fi? Do we need to help them with, ergonomic chairs, or what are the support systems that they must have? For our business, we didn't shut down the office fully at any time during the pandemic. Why? Because there were instances where there were some people who could not work from home, and maybe they lived close by the office, and so we could keep the office, a few rooms open for them to come and use the internet there and do some work. For some people, we had to move them. They were working in sales. We moved them to collaborate with our customers, and they would move into the sales offices of those customers who were working, and from there they were able to do their normal transactions. So understanding your strengths, and they will be different from business to business, but understanding your strengths and the resources that you have can help you to leverage the SWOT analysis. Opportunities. We just watched that lovely story of Flutterwave and smoke barbecue in a box. And, you know, one thing they said was that was something that started during the pandemic. There are many opportunities. And usually I would say, you know, during the lockdown, our minds are really not on lockdown. If we're able to process our minds and find the space to think through things, we will understand that consumer behavior is changing, purchasing power is changing, the market trend is changing, employees are changing. What are they focusing on, and where do we see those trends going? And what are the threats that we see as well from environment, from stakeholders, and also from competition? So those are things to think about. Now, when we talk about talent management for business continuity, and I'll try to rush now so we can have the time for question and answers, I looked at talents from 3 areas. I think it's very important to think of talents as existing talents, incoming talents, and exiting talents. And I'll tell you my thinking around it. For existing talents, it's very important. If you want to be a leader that keeps the team together and helps them to work effectively together, it's important to understand the hierarchy of needs of all existing employees. And they will be different, because if you work in an organization that has 80% millennials, the kind of strategies you would use will be different from an organization where you've got 50% who are baby boomers or who are Gen X. So understanding the kind of organization that you have and understanding their needs can help you to know, how do I continue to build a business with these talents that I have? One of the things we set up were employee advisory boards. So we had people at different levels of the organization, and we put them into circles. And based on those circles, we had the conversations, you know, how can we engage ourselves more? How can we measure performance? What are the kind of benefits you're looking for? You know, how can we reward? And it wasn't just a matter of from the top to the bottom. It was the team really deciding what they want to do. So we use this method called employee-led leadership enabled, employee-led leadership enabled. And the employees were the ones who were coming up with the concepts by themselves. It's easier to go with the flow and create a buy-in when it's coming straight from employees. So we had a conversation around it. Then we had to look at talents. Are all talents very critical at this point in time? It's very interesting to think about it and say, which are the talents? And found out that for people who were millennials, it was easier for them to start working from home. For the introverts, they found it easier to work from home. So we kind of did what we call reverse mentoring. And we kind of paired up introverts and extroverts together to be able to help one another from a mental health standpoint, from a virtual connect standpoint, virtual launches, virtual things, you know, we were able to mentor them together. Then we took like millennials and Gen X's, you know, putting them together, helping each other with technology, using Zoom, using, you know, MS Teams at the very beginning, until people could work hand in hand together. Okay, so those were things we did. Leadership for sure, compassionate leadership, making sure that you are not just sharing the good things that are going on in your life, but on days when things aren't going well, you're also able to reach out and say, hey, I'm not feeling great today, you know, and someone in the team can go ahead and help. So those are some things that I would like to share with existing employees. For exiting employees, I feel that this also is very critical. In my work with working women and a lot of work I do within that space, we all see the reports. A lot of people left the workplace in the last 1 year, either voluntarily or involuntarily. Many businesses had to resize, many businesses had to downsize, many businesses had to rethink about things. So one of the things I would say is, you know, if you have exiting employees, it's very important to make sure that you keep their respect and dignity, even if they have to leave the company. The other thing you have to make sure is make sure that you're thinking long term. So it's not all your winner set of generation that are leaving. How are you making sure that you're still creating the diversity that will help you to succeed within the organization? Then for some people, you know, it might be that you don't have the space now, but maybe 1 year from now, business will pick up and you might want to rehire. Do you have a rehire policy in place? And are you identifying the kind of employees that, oh, if something opens up in future, we might call you back? Winning the word of mouth, the moment of truth, is very important for exiting employees. Do they leave disgruntled, or do they leave being able to still share testimonials of how great the company, you know, they worked for is? Because that will help you in future when you're also trying to rehire them, or you're trying to get new hires into your markets. Partnership with key stakeholders, sometimes with existing employees. You know, if you have other key stakeholders, distributors that they can work with for a period of time, you know, there were different partnerships we did so that not everyone had to exit at that particular time. Shared values, you know, I've talked about that a little bit. Now, let me talk about incoming talents. Very importantly, we heard that from the first session as well. When you do your SWOT analysis, you have to think through, for business continuity, what kind of skills am I looking for? We all saw how e-commerce really boomed in the last 1 year. We saw how going online, we saw how digital fluency has become the thing. So are you looking for talents that you can assess that have those skills that you require for your business to succeed in the future? You know, we talk about talents and saying, oh, it's become a global village now. I'm telling you, we have access to more talents than you had in the past. And as we talk about unemployability and stuff, you may want to say, what do I need to do? How can I articulate the kind of talents I'm looking for, and then put in my own vacancies that enable such talents to be able to be attracted to my organization? And once they get attracted to your organization, you need to have a proper recruiting plan. One of the things we had to do was borderless recruiting. How do we make sure that borderless recruiting and borderless onboarding can go on significantly well and people feel they can stay? The first set of down, we lost them after 2 months, to be honest. They left because they just found it difficult to work in a virtual environment. Now, when we lost those talents, the key thing we did immediately was we gathered a team of new hires in the last 12 to 24 months. We put them into a room and said, you know what do we need to do to be able to attract, retain, and sustain you in this organization? And we learned a lot from them that we're putting in place now that is helping us to sustain ourselves. So when we talk about the future of work, what are some of the enablers that we see? Number one, people think about future of work and all they think about is work from home, work from office. That's just one aspect of it, but it's an important aspect. Reimagining the way we work, where we work, when we work, who we work with, and how work is done is very important. So if you have an office environment, you know, shifting into a kind of hybrid is one of the things that we found that is working today. So for example, in most of the surveys that have been done, you realize that employees, maybe about 60% are saying they don't want to come back into the office full time. So if you're a boss who is still thinking about how to get everybody into the office, that era has gone and you will lose your talents. It's already proven. So what do we need to do? What is the hybrid? Do a survey, find out. You know, it's interesting how Amazon, Google, they know what we want. They know how to push certain products to us based on the habits we've had in the past. But sometimes companies don't know what employees want. So getting our teams together and reimagining how we work, where we work. Is it work from home, work from office, work from anywhere, and what policies can help us? Remember, there is no one size that fits all. Then you also have to think about your present and future interests. I feel this is an important one because a business is also there to succeed. For a business to succeed, you must be able to reimagine what are the key stakeholder needs and what are the things that need to go on in that place. We'll talk more about that during the session. And I'm rounding up now. Thank you very much, Linda, for the time. I wanted to share this with the group before we go into the panel session. If you as an employee, you're thinking, okay, how can I boost my productivity? How can I enhance the things that I know how best to do? I've got a free book that I'm offering to you. Feel free to download it from there. And if you're looking for how can I move forward when my normal has shifted as well, there's a new book that we have out as well at Roving Heights and on Amazon that can be of help to you. So that's it for me. And I look forward to answering your questions and listening to the panels. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Fofo. That was very engaging and very insightful. And I actually loved what you said about some of the schemes you're introducing in your organization, the employee-led leadership engagement. And I know that we still have some business leaders on this call. And what I'm about to say would not be new to some of us HR professionals. There are some business leaders who think human resources, especially the leaders, that what we do is quite administrative. I'm sure you're not hearing this for the first time. And we also have business leaders who actually understand the role of talent and the importance of engaging talent, because involvement and talent happiness directly impact on their level of productivity. So it's something that I'd like us to discuss in detail. So I'd like to invite our panelists to join us on this panel discussion. So I'd like to invite Lara Yeku. Lara Yeku is currently the head of human resources with Flour Mills. She's a global HR leader, a coach, a strategist who has had a progressive career climb. She used to work with Accenture as the country HR lead and is the author of My HR Storybook, a book that promotes mentoring through storytelling. So Lara Yeku, we're happy to have you join us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, so our second panelist is Marilyn Maduka, who is currently the People Director for West Africa, Abimbev. And Abimbev is the #1 brewer in the world. Marilyn has also been privileged to work with various organizations like KPMG, MTN, and Unilever. She's also the founder of Daisy Girl Foundation, an NGO dedicated to empowering young girls through value-based education. So to learn more about our panelists and speakers, just follow us on our social media pages on LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook. And the last but not the least, who is the only male in our midst, is Yemi Fashion, who likes to be known simply as a senior HR professional. So you're all welcome to the second session. So I'd like to get your views, just your general view on the topic of discussion. I'd like to start with Marilyn. Is Marilyn here?
Marilyn is right here. Good afternoon, everyone. Good evening and good morning, depending on what part of the world you're in. So I think that the topic chosen for today is so relevant in terms of engaging talents for business continuity. The reality is that if you look at companies, I think we get it fundamentally wrong when we put profits before people. There's no business that can thrive, that can even succeed, that can survive if you don't have people at the heart of it. And it's interesting that we are in this space of artificial intelligence. We are now exploring the length and breadth of what technology can do for us, and that is so exciting. But irrespective of how powerful technology can be, technology is empty without the people. And so I think today's topic on how do you engage not just the head, but also the hearts of people to be able to do more, to achieve more, and make an impact even beyond your expectations. I think that's what it's about for me, and it's a super relevant, super exciting topic for us to delve into today. So I'm looking forward.
Thank you very much, Marilyn, for that. So Yemi, can we please have your view?
Okay, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Nice to be here. Thanks, Linda, for inviting me to this conference. Two quick things for me. When I was listening to Valentine, and he got to this slide around the fundamentals of business, the first thing he mentioned was people. I was totally elated. That coming from a non-traditional HR person, so it looks like the needle is moving or shifting gradually. I mean, you'll expect before now that it was going to be strategy, it was going to be accounts, and as a matter of fact, strategy was number 3, finance was number 4, marketing number 5, and technology number 7. Well, people as number 1. That just shows some sort of shift in the ways leaders of business are now thinking about people. That is so comforting and heartwarming for someone like me. And then the second thing is, Fofo stole my favorite quote from John Maxwell. Everything rises and falls on leadership. You see, all the different dimensions of business relating to people can only be tied together by solid leadership. And I've said this before, that transformational HR is totally impossible without inspirational leadership. If we don't have leaders who are fully on board with us, people managers in terms of how to manage the different verticals of people management. We will go round and round in circles trying to convince them to do the right things. And it might just be some exercises in futility. But once we have the right sort of leadership that will tie everything together between business and people, then the results will be quickly seen in the daily operations of a business. That would be my intro conversation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Yemi. I've taken that from you. Transformational leadership is only possible when you have inspirational leaders. I totally agree with you. So Lara, you here, so we can also take your general view on the topic.
Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on wherever you're listening to us from. I'm excited to be here and I feel so honored. Thank you so much. I mean, listening to the first session, especially Val's session, like Y rightly mentioned, I mean, it was spot on. We are where we are because we've all gotten to the realization on the importance of people with more in-depth understanding that our people are our greatest assets. With the pandemic, there's been a lot of conversations around leadership, more than before. So when we were talking about the opportunity that the pandemic brought, one of it is even how we treat our people and how we place emphasis on the importance of our people. When I read the topic, how to engage people in the new world of work now, for me, it is spot on. Because if businesses will continue to thrive, if businesses will continue to excel, then people need to remain at the core of it. More importantly, it's not just, oh, I have talent, then I need to make my talent more productive. But it is more around how do we harness our talent. For us to be able to get the most of our talent is understanding how we harness our talent. And thanks so much for that presentation. I mean, it was spot on. You said a whole lot within the few minutes that you had to make your presentation. For me is how do we enable our talent? How do we harness our talent? Given the pandemic experience, now we're in post-pandemic, there's been a need for us to also begin to look at how do we transform in-out, and that is the place of leadership. Transformation, you transform in-out when leaders understand the importance of service leadership, inspirational leadership. You want people to do things, then you need to get to their hearts. You need to connect more with them. You need to show more care around their wellness, around their comfort. I mean, with pandemic, it brought about a lot of drastic change in the way we do things, and people had to respond very quickly. And I think for me, it's important that we all know that, yes, people are our greatest assets, but how do we harness it? Is understanding the how going forward, understanding the role that we play as leaders to ensure that we get the optimal best from our people so they can remain engaged within our respective businesses. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lara. That's very amazing. I was having a conversation recently with someone and the person said, you know, power has changed hands. I don't know how true that is. You know, the talents are now empowered because back to what Fofo said, we now have access to a lot of talent, right? So it brings me to the current trend. Now, mid to small businesses have to compete with global organizations worldwide, right? For these talents. And that's because of the advent of work from home. So talents can now engage in some short-term projects and other jobs. Do we even think this is ethical? And you know, whatever the response is, what is your organization doing, or what should management or HR professionals, leaders do or advise the organization to engage in to ensure that these talents remain loyal, you know, and constantly engage to drive productivity? Fofo, I'd like you to respond to that.
All right. So first and foremost, it's an honor to be on this panel with my distinguished panelists. I have learned a lot even in the short introduction that you've done. Now to the question of the day. I think it's a beautiful time to be a talent right now. I think it is a fantastic moment. You said power has changed hands, and I think it's at the end of the day, it's not about a power struggle, because at the end of the day, it's really teamwork and effectiveness that will make things work at the end of the day. But one key thing, I hope you can still hear me.
Yes, you can. We can hear you.
Okay, just check if the screen went frozen. So one of the key things is talent has become more global now. So the fact is talents are everywhere. There is no excuse to say, oh, I can't find the talents I'm looking for. But it also creates the problem of, so how do I compete for these talents? Because you still have companies who are saying, I put out this vacancy, but I still can't find the right people, or I'm not getting the right people sifting or applying to my company. So I will look at it in two areas, because I know we've got the two sets of people on the call today. For everyone who is a business leader and for HR, it's very important to articulate again the values that you bring as a company. Why should talent pick your company over another one? Because now they have the opportunity to apply to as many as they want, and they can sit in their home and do part-time jobs. They can have part-time jobs and do 3 gigs in a week without having to be tied to one company on a contract. Yes, this is the era. So why would a talent pick your company versus another? So it's very important to re-articulate who we are, what we do, and what value we bring. And when we're talking about this, we're not talking about value we bring in terms of financials alone. We're talking about value we bring employee well-being and health, because that's becoming a priority for people. What are your flexible work arrangement policies? What are the benefits you have that help with parental leaves and stuff? How do you handle talent development and making sure that you're reskilling me for the future? And then your stakeholders, community. Many talents today are looking for a company that is linked with some sustainability work. How are you improving the environment? How are you improving the community? How are you helping with governmental things? So every company has to re-articulate their mission, their vision statements. They have to make sure it's not just what they're putting on their company website. They have to teach it to all the employees again, so that the word of mouth and the testimonials coming out from employees is reflecting that particular thing. That's one way they can do it. The second thing is making sure that your recruiting strategies are no longer you just post it on LinkedIn and that's all. The AI has brought in different ways of making sure you're sifting the right talents, and your advertisements or your messaging is going out to the population you need across the world. Many people are using all this HR analytics nowadays that can help you to find talents anywhere in the world. So leveraging that can also help you to reach the people that you're looking forward to reach. And for talents, what I would say, so I can allow the other panelists to share, is for talents, know your worth. Okay, know your worth, develop yourself, know your strengths, know your worth. This is not the age where, you're kind of settling for less. This is the time to understand this is the value I bring. And for those who, for any reason, maybe due to the pandemic, your company had to downsize, one of the work I do with people is really helping you to build back that confidence and take your value somewhere else. It's just about just transforming it into another organization, or starting your own business, or going through a hybrid gig environment. So there are many opportunities opening up. I would say for companies, reassess your process and engage technology to help you to reach this talent. Be very clear on the work that you're doing and how it can benefit both the employee and the community. Showcase the excellence work you're doing in all those areas, and then hopefully you attract those talents to you. So retention is very important for those who are in and for those that you're bringing in.
Awesome. That's very, very, that's a good contribution. Thank you, Fofo. I mean, so for someone like Lara, you work a lot with the youth, and you're somebody who encourages entrepreneurship, side hustle in quotes, in quotes. So I'd also like to get your perspective on this question.
Thank you so much. And thanks, Fofo. I mean, Fofo's response was spot on in terms of how do we keep them engaged. And that's the reality that we're in now, contingency workers. Work is no longer, I have to be in a place physically, but how do I perform my work wherever I am, anywhere in the world? And for me, the shift has moved from work being specific to roles, but rather being more focused towards tasks. What is required of you? What do you need to deliver on? Work has moved from just, oh, this is what I need to deliver, more into this is the outcome I need to deliver. So looking at work from that perspective, a lot of young people, I mean, I have a couple of mentees who are in Nigeria, but they don't work for people within Nigeria, they work for people offshore. Like Fofo equally mentioned earlier, work is borderless now. And our young people now want to be enabled. They don't, I have a couple of young friends who do not want to have to go to your office to work physically. They want to work from home. How are you creating an environment within your organization with your value proposition that will attract such people? Young people now, what they need is data, and what they need is they need to have the tools and deliver on your work. And that, of course, it's also flown into the fact that a lot of young people now want the freedom to be able to do work that they love and enjoy. So when they want you to assign work to them, but don't micromanage me. Don't tell me I have to do this within the specific time. Give me the leeway to be creative. Give me the leeway to be innovative with how I deliver your work. So for me, it's more around the mindset of the young people and the mindset of business owners. We need to understand, what are they thinking? When I was listening to the first session, when Israel was talking about how they were able to position Flutterwave to meet the needs of their customer through empathy, putting themselves in the shoes of their customer. And I think as business owners as well, we need to adopt this methodology more. Let's put ourselves in the shoes of our talent. I mean, what are the kind of talent that you want your organization to attract? What do they love to do? What are the things that excite them? What are the things that would make your organization connect to them? If you're able to understand them from the perspective of what they love to do, then you can design your initiatives and your processes, your employee value proposition to speak to their needs. So it's applying more of empathy to understand them so that you can come up with initiatives that would motivate and keep them engaged. Like Linda initially said, I mean, now talent is the new power. People can decide to resign not because of pay, but because of how they enjoy the work they are doing. People are more aware of their mental and emotional health. If you are in an organization and you're feeling too stressed, people would leave your organization. So how are we able to design initiatives that meet the need of our talent? The talent that we have existing within our organization based on Fofo's presentation, the talent that we want to attract into our organization, even the talent that eventually leave our organization, they should be ambassadors. They are the people who would go out and refer people to join the organization because they've equally enjoyed working with you. So there has to be a balance in understanding what they need and then designing your initiative and processes to keep them engaged and motivated as an organization.
Absolutely. Coming up with initiatives where you involve the talent at the development phase would even drive more engagement. So that's an interesting perspective. So how does an organization encourage initiatives? I would like to throw this to Marilyn now. How would an organization, or how would you advise leaders, business leaders listening in, to engage and encourage talents who come up with business initiatives that drive performance and professional growth, but has no direct impact on the business? So Marilyn.
I'm not sure what you want me to say, but so I'm going to get you straight.
Okay.
My view is businesses, especially for profit businesses, are not charity organizations. So there is a need that whatever you're doing can in some way speak to the business priorities. You come to me and you say, oh, please, I have this passion in fashion design and I'd love for the company to sponsor me. And the company is into construction. Hello, are you even being fair? You know, there's this entitlement mentality, especially when you work, the bigger the company you work for, the higher your entitlement mentality. There's this entitlement mentality that sometimes we bring to a company as employees, and we need to start shifting that mentality from entitlements to ownership. And one of the biggest things I have found that helps switch on your ownership mentality, on your put on your ownership cap, is when you ask yourself the question, if this were my business, would I do this? It just has a way of igniting a light bulb in your head. And I think that as employees, we must be able to connect our interests to, at the very minimum, the company's value chain. So it may be that what I'm asking for in terms of how I want to develop myself is not a direct linkage to the immediate job I am doing. But if I look across the value chain of the business, there must be a linkage. Otherwise, my view is that it's not even fair for you to have that expectation of the company. And let's just speak frankly. The flip, however, is that as companies, we now need to get, and I think that's what Fofo spoke to, that's what Lara spoke to. We now need to get more flexible in the things that we allow, understanding that the world of work, the talent landscape has changed fundamentally. And we need to get more creative in being able to allow our people do more with less, in being able to give them opportunities to broaden their scope, to become more agile, to become more flexible, to become more nimble, adaptable to the ways of working. And so it might be that you no longer say, oh, this person is an HR person, so once an HR person, forever an HR person. No, you are then able to look at to say this person is an HR person that has excellent negotiation skills and can actually thrive if given an opportunity in the sales environment. And we are willing to invest in developing that person. Or this person is a finance person that has this incredible problem-solving mentality, is always thinking solutions. And if we put this person in a strategy or business-related area to solve problems even beyond the scope of just finance, they can thrive, and we're willing to invest in their development in that regard. So that's the way I would suggest that we're able to marry it, whereby you get much more flexible in the opportunities you're willing to invest in for your people, but always it has to be tied to the bottom line. It has to be tied to the value chain. Otherwise, like, you know, we're now talking charity. So those are my
that's correct. YF, can we get your views on this as well? You have to unmute.
Okay, so my thoughts, 3 things have changed around talent in the last, maybe in the last 1 year, drastically, but they started changing about 2-3 years ago. We started talking about the future of work. Since about 2017, 2018, for you remember, virtually all the conferences we had in 2018, 2019, we were talking about the future of work. So actually do me a favor, that your slide where you have future of work, please go change it to the now of work. The future has happened already. So we are now in the now of work. That is the reality. And 3 things have changed. The work that we do has changed and everything around it. The workforce has changed and the work environment itself has changed. So it is time now for HR practitioners or people managers and leadership to come to terms with the new realities of the now of work. And when all the elements around the 3 areas have changed, it goes without saying that the boundaries surrounding them will also change. So we don't have boundaries around work anymore. We have already agreed that work is where work is, right? Also, if you look at the work environment itself, I mean, Fofo showed us a slide of a work environment in 2019 and a work environment in 2020 and 2021. Totally changed. And also the workforce itself, which is talent. Let me give you an instance, just to buttress what Fofo, Lara, and Marion have all said, without saying the same things over and over. A particular organization just last week, they were, before now, they were doing some sort of hybrid work schedule. 2 days on, 3 days on, 3 days on, or 1 week on. But leadership in its wisdom decided that, okay, now everybody should come back to work. You know, we, in this part of the world, some people are struggling with moving forward with the new realities or going back to where we were. But this organization decided to say, everybody from Monday, you need to come back to work. One particular individual responded with a resignation letter. Reality. Mm-hmm. That's the truth. Because leadership and management of the organization, they are failing to realize that the cheese has moved. Like Fofo said, I was so involved in that presentation, but the cheese did not move in 2021. It didn't even move in 2020. It started moving like 3 years ago, and organizations that were getting ready for the next destination of the cheese from a talent perspective, they are already reaping the benefits of the changes they've made to the workplace, to the workforce, and to the work environment. And if we are talking about talent specifically, we have no boundaries anymore. We're talking about SMEs, we're talking about the competition. If you want to retain your people, the people management philosophies around talent must move away from an inside out perspective to an outside in perspective. i.e., it is not about what the organization wants or wants to do. It's about what people want and how we should change policies, change our processes, change our compliance structure, change our reward framework to meet the new demands of the new reality. And like Clara said, we cannot sit at the leadership table or HR on the 7th floor of a building and start crafting out those new policies. No, we've got to sit with people. We've got to sit with the talent. Employee engagement is for employees. Why are we therefore drafting the framework for employee engagement without employees? So what are the new realities from their perspective? The lenses, we should draft the framework of people management from the lenses of employees and not from the perspective of the organization. So we've got to come to terms totally with new realities around the now of work and make sure that we are engaging talent. Otherwise, we will lose out. The war for talent has gone into the next level. It's on 2.0 right now. And if we don't change the way we do things, any organization that is still living in the future of work rather than the now of work, it's a matter of time before they become dinosaurs. My thoughts.
Thank you, Amy. So I see a lot of people raising their hands. So kindly use the Q&A icon to drop your questions. We'll take your questions after the panel discussion. So I agree with you, YF. The cheese started moving before 2020, and I don't think it would ever, I think it would continue to move. I think it would continue.
I forgot to say that. It hasn't gotten to its destination.
Exactly.
The cheese is still moving. Thank you for that.
Absolutely. So it will continue to move. And because today is COVID-19, in the past it was something else, right? In the future, it could be something else as well. So how is HR repositioning itself to ensure that businesses recover from future threats? We can start with you, YF, since you're already talking. Unmute. Kindly.
Yeah. What should businesses do? The part that, or the area where most businesses are losing it, is in the area of connectedness to their people. And you talked about losing out to, SMEs or owner-managed businesses. There is a kind of struggle between, should I spend my whole time with an organization, or should I spend time doing my own thing by the sides, at the same time working with the organization? If we can connect with the hearts and minds of employees, it will be easier for us to ask for their head in terms of what we want them to do. But along that journey of employee engagement and employee experience, we are losing out so many employees because we are not connecting with them in terms of what will really continue to empower them. If we are constantly in touch in terms of what we need to do, stop doing, start doing, continue doing, we will get lots of data that we can work with, and therefore we can tweak our every area of people management. For instance, my generation, I mean, I tend to think that I'm a millennial. Marilyn, don't laugh, don't try. Don't just start. I tend to think that I'm a millennial. If you give me connectivity, if you give me data, and you give me power bank as a reward system, I'm possibly happier with the generation of Fofo who came into the workplace before me and status car was important to them. You know what I mean? It's because, I mean, remember the older generation, if you put out an advert and you say salary 25 million plus car plus, the car is the first thing that the older generation will look at because it was important to them in that generation. But right now we have the millennialization of the workforce. What are they looking for? Are they looking for a status car, or they're looking for connectivity that allows them to work from anywhere? Just give me my deliverables and let me go do the job. So I'm not interested in your status car. I can jump into the Uber car in the morning, come to work, and I can jump into the same work car in the evening, or both, whatever it is, and I will continue to deliver whatever you want from me. So reward structures are changing based on the new demands of talent in the workforce. The way we performance manage talent is totally different in today's world. It's not the same thing. The way we onboard, I mean, so many, because of the situation of the world last year, so many organizations or so many employees joined organizations and they didn't see anybody for months. If you had said that to some organization 2-3 years ago, they'll be like, are you okay? I'm aware that some organizations say, I'm not going to mention the organization, one of my previous lives, we tried to implement work from home. We were even trying, I won't tell you how many years ago so that you don't get organization. We were trying to say work from home once or twice a month, right? So that we could try to start introducing the flex mode sort of work. This was prior to the pandemic. But you know what? We got to the board level and we were given 1 day per quarter. When we got back to the employees with the feedback, they laughed at us and they said, are you guys serious? 1 day in 3. That same organization worked from home throughout last year, and they delivered better results than the last 2 or 3 years. So that sort of engagement with what our employees need will be a game changer with organizations that are forward-looking, right? And I've mentioned performance management, I've mentioned reward. It's along all the verticals of people management. Whatever we want to do, let us see it from the lenses of the employees. Lara will say it's design thinking. That's a design thinking prof in the house. And that's the correct thing. Like I said earlier on, how do you start doing employee engagement without carrying your employees along? So those are the things for me, about 2 or 3 things within my thoughts on that subject.
We even have someone in the audience agreeing with you, Maureen Okwilmi. She says data is life.
Yep.
So yep. She's agreeing with you. So, Popo, what's your view on this? How is HR repositioning itself to drive business continuity and sustainability?
Yeah, if YF is a millennial, I'm kind of wondering what generation I am. Maybe I'm still a COVID baby. But, you know, interesting conversations. And if I will just add to what YF said, spot on, and thank you for sharing. It's always a pleasure listening to you because I learn a lot from you as well. One of the first things is, you know, HR, you mentioned what can HR do? I think there are still many organizations where HR is not a strategic partner at the table. And that has to change completely. If you're an HR person on this call and you are not on that table making suggesting the ideas that is coming from the organization, listening to your people, bringing them to the table, working that together with the team, that is the first place to start. This is the age where HR is no longer about policing, it is about partnership. It has to be a partnership at the leadership level, a partnership at every single level, in such a way that you're bringing what is the most important matters. You're bringing them to the table. So that's number one. Number two, YF also mentioned it, connecting with a purpose. One thing COVID taught all of us is there is more to life. There's more to life than just being on that Lagos expressway or that Third Mainland Bridge from 4 a.m. till about 10 p.m. It taught us there is more to life. And I'm telling you, because those things have changed, companies have to start thinking through, how do I connect with the heart? I think Marilyn mentioned that also, and Lara as well, and bring it, what will pull me out of bed to want to work for this company? It has to be a purpose. There must be something beyond just the salary that is making me get up and want to do this. The loyalty comes with connection with a purpose, connection with a meaningful job, connection with something you feel like I'm bringing value, either to the customer or through the products that I'm making. So how do we humanize the products and services in such a way that employees feel a connection and a pull to it? It's an important thing. There is no one-size-fits-all answer to this. As I'm saying it, it really comes from sitting with the employees themselves and saying, what will make you get up from bed every single day to come work for this company? And take some of those lessons and put them into refining our policies and our procedures. Communication, YF mentioned that. Vulnerability of leaders. There are many leaders who are still afraid to show how vulnerable they are.
Okay, so while we're waiting for Fofo to come back, I think network, we'll just move on to Lara. So based on how HR is repositioning itself, are there sustainability programs that organizations can put in place, or specifically programs that you've been involved in that a lot of people can learn from, or a lot of people can adopt in their various places of work, that you think would work, that would ensure just sustainability of the business continues, the success continues, and it's not because a lot of businesses, like in the first session, we talked about some businesses that sprung up because of the current situation, the economic threats, right? So we have businesses coming up because of the situation. When that situation disappears, would we still have those businesses? So what sort of programs are you putting in place to drive continuity of business from the HR perspective?
Sure. Thank you so much, Linda. So with COVID-19 crisis, this has brought about a huge shift in ensuring that the businesses engage more with HR as critical business stakeholders. For me,
okay, Lara, you mistakenly muted yourself. Yes.
Okay, sorry.
That's okay.
Right. Yes, I was just trying to share my experience in terms of my organization, what we did in terms of business continuity. So last year, the initial realization for us was the need for us to move people from various locations within our various sites in Lagos and outside Lagos to work during the lockdown. Because we are in the essential services industry, we needed to move around and there was a lockdown. The first hit for us was our employee location data. Even though we had collected their about data and their addresses, we never for once really thought about, okay, how do we now use this data to come up a plan to design employee mobility? That was the first shock for us. we had to quickly, as much as possible, ensure that our employee data with regards to their addresses were up to date. So imagine having to do that for 6,000 plus employees. We did that very quickly, and we used that to make arrangements for employee mobility, transporting employees to work on a daily basis, morning and evening. Part of our business sustainability plan was to ensure that our people were able to commute to work safely. So beyond just having the data, we had to leverage the data, which for me opened up an area of opportunity for us, even as HR. So you have your employee data. Apart from gathering and collecting your employee data, what are you using the data for? We do not have to wait until there is a need before we're able to look at our data and see how we can proactively draw insights from our employee data. I mean, we have a huge database within HR, beyond the fact that we used to understand the demography of our employee, their location, also for us to make future initiatives that we believe will speak to the behavioral needs of our employee, leveraging on data. So for us, first and foremost, data was huge. We needed to build our sustainability plan around harnessing that data. The other bit for us was to ensure that our employee wellness, their health and emotional wellness was top-notch for us. We had to ensure that there were initiatives to ensure they were protected. We had to set up COVID-19 protocols. I mean, and part of that also included the need for us to reduce people within the workplace, and we introduced the work from home. I remember joining my organization a couple of years ago, I mean, like a year and a half ago, and we have to drive to work on a daily basis. With the pandemic, we had to introduce flexi work arrangements to ensure that, one, our people were safe, to ensure that we followed COVID-19 protocol, and also to ensure that it wasn't just about coming to work, but even at home, that they were equally safe at home. We had to put in a couple of initiatives to further help harness how they settle at home. I remember when we initially had to move to the work from home model, the first 2-3 days, there was a particular team member who wasn't coming online until about 5-6 p.m. and she would work till 12 midnight. Then I won't see her emails, or I mean, I won't be able to reach her during the day, but by the time I wake up in the morning, then my email box is filled with all her responses to my mails. That happened day 1 and day 2. And by day 3, I had to call her and ask, okay, what's going on here? Then she opened up and said, well, she was struggling with 2 toddlers. I mean, so normally during the day, her toddlers would take her entire attention. She didn't have a nanny, the teachers were not coming. I mean, it was a lockdown period. So we had to discuss. I asked, okay, what can you do? How can we be of help? Then we had an arrangement, even though it was work from home, but I had to bring in that empathy to understand what will work best for you. What my point here is, how do we create flexibility and agility around our processes to ensure business continuity? It's not just by, this is what the policy states. You have to be by your computer. I need to monitor you. You are online at 8 a.m. and you're online all through to 5 p.m. But ensuring that we connect and understand, and from a place of care and service leadership, we show more care towards making sure that they are productive. They're not just delivering the work, but they are productive in the right state of mind, right? And in the best possible mental health state. So for me, that was an eye-opener. So a lot of we equally had to deploy coaching trainings for our managers, because managers now had to manage people remotely. And trust me, we didn't all have the prior experience. For me, I had, because I had worked at Accenture for a couple of years before I joined my current organization. But we had to quickly deploy coaching training for all our line managers to help them understand how best they can manage their employees remotely, and even those that are on site going through the various pandemic experiences. What we equally did again was around ensuring business continuity plan, with having alternate alternate work arrangement. Because of COVID, there were chances that people might come down with the virus. So if anyone comes down with the virus, what is your backup plan for that role? We equally had to look through all our processes to ensure that we had backup plans for all the roles within our organization. I'm in HR. If I'm unable to come to work due to health reasons, do I have a backup? Is there someone else that can quickly step into my shoes? So that also helped us to buffer up our succession planning as well, to some large extent, so that people had to learn to take on other people's role. So in terms of work arrangement, yes, we had to put that in place. And of course, a couple of CRS activity beyond just having to come to work. We had to, my organization equally had to ensure that there were palliatives made available to people, to the community, and of course, to some certain organization as well. So looking at it holistically from a talent point of view is ensuring that, one, they were safe and they were at their optimal best at all times, putting in place health measures to equally cater for people, perhaps if they come down with the virus. And of course, looking at work arrangements equally as well for alternate work plans and that, and ensuring that our people remain the top focus for us within my organization. So that was what we did to ensure business continuity, even though there was a very tough period for us, given the nature of our organization, having to move people, but ensuring that we did all of that for 6,000 plus employees across various.
That's a large number.
Yes.
That's a large number. Pretty impressive. And what that would do for you is that you would focus more on tracking results instead of activities.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That's a good one. I've also learned from that. So Marilyn, working for the #1 brewer in the world, I remember when I was doing my MBA, you're muted, by the way. I remember when I was doing my MBA, in one of the courses that I took, we were looking at your sector, your industry, and we actually did projects that ABINBEV would come into Nigeria and buy off. There'll be some form of either collaboration or co-opetition. Co-opetition is we may compete in some countries, and in some countries we could collaborate. And shortly after, I think 2 years after, it happened. So working with such a global standard organization, what sort of sustainability programs have you put in place, and are they actually being effective?
Yes, so thank you very much. I think now I'm not going to speak theoretical, I'm just going to talk about our experience and our learning as we went along. I think one of the most powerful things that we did was in terms of mapping out our stakeholders and our priorities. So our top 3 priorities was #1, the safety of our people. We called it out as #1. #2 was business continuity, because we wanted to ensure that after the COVID pandemic, we still had a business and we could still pay salaries and still support the entire value chain. And #3 was the survival of the communities in which we operate, because no business is an island. There's an entire ecosystem that ensures your continuity, and you can't do good business if you don't feel a sense of responsibility towards those that you work with. So in terms of safety of our people as #1, we agreed that in terms of cost saving, and if you know ABINBEV, when it comes to cost, we are unapologetic about the fact that we constantly manage our costs tightly so that we can free up our resources to do bigger things. But when it came to safety, there was no compromise. Cost was not a priority. So we're one of those companies that even till date, we still use the 3-ply disposable masks for all our employees. And you can imagine doing that for thousands on a daily, and even when the masks were 500 naira a piece, even being able to negotiate, we were able to get it slightly cheaper. One of the things that Global did was Global sent us almost 1 million masks in Nigeria. So they quickly identified where were the areas, the countries where we were suffering. And that's why at moments like that, you are grateful to have the might of such a company behind you and you're not working alone. Locally, things like staff buses where you're not providing, changing the routes, extending the routes. We did all those. Consumer user education and then employee education. And one of the things we realized was that initially we were only educating our direct employees and we were neglecting all the others, the cleaners who are members of the contract staff, the packers and sorters and all these other people in the value chain that you neglect. So even being able to extend it to them, we used a lot of technology. So when you even come into the property, you are checked in. There's a check-in procedure that you follow, and we key in the people who have come in. When we find out that one person is infected, our protocol of isolation, what's that terminology where you identify all the people who they've come across with? I've forgotten the terminology.
Contact tracing.
Contact tracing.
Bless your heart. Contact tracing. And what we also did was we keep track of our employees who are infected, but we also keep track of the family members of our employees. So even if Marilyn is not infected, but Marilyn has somebody in her network that is infected, how do we provide? And so there was all of that going on. In terms of the business continuity, there was that. But in terms of the community, so in some countries where we were able to, including in many of our African countries, hand sanitizers was one of the things that we were able to make. Or even if we were not able to make, we were able to partner because we are alcohol. So, and hand sanitizer is alcohol, 70%. So using our might, making sanitizers, not just for us and our employees, but also for the communities. We gave out tons and tons of sanitizer. But beyond that, we extended beyond our value chain. So especially in Nigeria, when we saw that there was hunger in the land, things like even rice for the community. We also make malts, so giving out malts to the community.
Okay.
So then I think something interesting happened when we went into EndSARS, which was last year, and it was a different type of crisis, and it was Nigeria only. And I'm gonna get a bit vulnerable because when we talk about sustainability, I remember we saw, Lara spoke about the resilience, even Popo as well. And the ability to...
We're running behind schedule, so I want you to speak on. There's a question I'll direct to you because we have some questions from the audience. So we'll just take 2 questions because of time. So you're going to still give us that thought. We have some questions. So just some. So there's a question from Chinwe. And her question is, the new world of work has allowed us to have multiple gigs in addition to our core job. How do we avoid burnout and making mistakes? Just a minute, so we can quickly round up, yes.
Sure. So I think that as individuals, sometimes we put ourselves under more pressure than we need to. And at some point in time, you have to be able to ask yourself, what am I really looking for? Do you want to make all the money and compete, and at the end of the day, you cannot enjoy it? There's a quote I like from a man who said his job is very interesting. He coaches people who are about to die, and he kind of helps them transition. And he said that of all the people who he had coached and worked with who are near death, he had never heard of a single person that said they wish they had worked more during their lives. So when it comes down to what really matters, the truth is your ability to have and give love and to be able to celebrate those little moments with those you care about, sometimes it's much more important than the money you have in your bank. So know yourself, know your limits, and be okay to be able to say, okay, enough already. I'm not going to do X and Y, and I'm not going to feel guilty about it. I realized at a certain point a few years ago that I can do everything I set my mind to. It's just that I can't do it all at the same time. And so ability to be able to prioritize Don't fall into the trap of trying to do everything, and then you have 4 side hustles and you're not sleeping, you barely have time to eat. The truth is, when you get into that, you get into a mode of existing but not really living. And what you really want is to live, not just exist. So my suggestion to you or to such people would be, breathe, just breathe. You know, every day that you survive already is a prize in itself. And set your goals in a way that it allows you time to remember your name. That would be my 2 pennies worth.
Awesome. Live, don't just exist. Thank you. That's my tagline for the next couple of weeks. Live, don't just exist. So we have another question from Abimbola, and her question is, how do we curb the migration of doctors and ensure professionals that meet the demand in Nigeria are recruited into the health sector? So we'll just use this question to get concluding views from all the speakers. So how do we curb the migration of doctors and ensure professionals meet the demand in Nigeria recruited into the health sector? So Yemi?
Okay, I think the first thing that came to my mind was, this is above my pay grade, but I'll make some attempts at this. I think it's a call to leadership, and we've been talking about leadership a lot from the beginning of the conversation till now. Just that we've been concentrating our thoughts and efforts around corporate Nigeria leadership. But I think this is where leadership from the political space comes in. We can't stop it. Just like we can't stop resignations in our organizations because people are finding other jobs because Marilyn can pay more than my sector. Therefore, she's focusing on my area to come and get people. And I can't stop it. It's the same thing. We can't stop it unless we give them a compelling reason to stay in the country. Just as we've been talking about connectedness and engagement with employees so that they can continue to be retained in our organizations, it's the same thing from a political perspective. We've got to give people a reason to believe in Nigeria and therefore stay in Nigeria. Otherwise, there is nothing we can do. People will always find alternatives, right? That's the truth. People will always find their own balance. And if balance isn't in the country, but they can find it in Canada or the US or maybe Ghana, they will always go there. So the important thing is to create an environment that connects people to their vision or purpose into the long term. Now, the second part, which is my concluding words, will be to say to the business owners, business leaders, not HR people now, listening to us. We spend so much money these days on emotional intelligence. We tell people to understand themselves, understand their colleagues, understand their bosses, and be able to survive and thrive within the workspaces. But if you put all that money somewhere in a box and you compare it with the toxic leadership that we get in organizations on a daily basis, how does it align? Absolutely. If you send me to go do EQ anywhere, locally or offshore, I'm saying that the entire organization, all managers should go do it. But when I come back, the toxicity in the environment isn't going away. How really, or to what advantage or benefit is that spent on emotional intelligence? That is the kind of question I would love to leave with the executive leaders of the organization, because people are really complaining. People are really complaining about toxic leadership. Something needs to give. Thank you.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you, Yemi. So I don't know if Fofo is back on call. Let's just take a concluding view. Fofo, are you here?
I'm here. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay,
yeah.
Just, we're talking about burnout, and I was listening to that because one of the things I'm doing this weekend is spending some time in a jungle with my family. So Wi-Fi could be erratic here, but if I just, just add a few thoughts to like final closing to the conversations, because I think both Marilyn and Yemi have done justice. It's just a quote by Robert Kiyosaki that I kind of tweaked a bit. And that quote says that in times of severe economic crisis, dictators and heroes emerge. And my challenge to everyone who is listening, whether as an employee or as an employer or business leader, is which one will you be? Are you going to be a dictator in these times? Or are you going to be a hero that people will remember? Because it's not so much what we say, it's really what we do and how we encourage people during this time of crisis. The values we talk about, the values we share as a company, do we throw them out of the window during crisis, or do we act them out as leaders? So during this time of crisis and this time that we're reawakening the workplace, will you be a dictator or will you be a hero? And I hope that each one of us will choose to be the hero and be the change that we're looking for. Thank you so much for inviting me for this.
Thank you for this. So, Lara, we'd also like to get your concluding view while you respond to the question.
So with regards to the question, I think YF have done justice to that already. I don't think I have any other contribution. I mean, it's obvious. I'll just conclude right away. So in terms of my conclusion today is really to challenge us. Sometimes when we point the finger to issues, challenges, we have 4 fingers pointing back at us. So from a leadership perspective and also as business owners, it's time for us to reflect more and be true to ourselves. Fofo said it, we need to start asking ourselves those thought-provocative questions, those thought-provoking questions, and let's be real and let's be true to ourselves. Change, they say, is the only constant thing. The environment is changing, but we as leaders, how are we changing? It's beyond just attending all the trainings and all the emotional intelligence and all the design thinking trainings. How are we intentional with how and what we contribute to our organization? So it's a wake-up call for us to, as much as possible, embrace change personally. Let's be more intentional with how we relate, build, develop, and empower people beyond just policies and trainings and all of that. But let's be the change that we seek. Thank you.
We need to unmute later.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Lara. I've just been informed that a lot of messages are coming from the audience and they would like us to take more questions. So maybe additional 5 minutes just to take one more question and then we can conclude. So moving on to Marilyn. Marilyn would like to see your beautiful face again. We're still seeing your beautiful face, but it's just your picture. Are you here? Okay, awesome. Yes.
So we can see her face.
Yes, we can see her beautiful face. So Marilyn, would like to also get you respond to that question as well.
Okay, so I'm going to respond. It's the question about the medical doctors, and I'm going to respond by sharing my own personal story. There was the time when mid-career, I just wanted to check out. Like I was so done with Nigeria. And I had almost like one of those epiphany moments where I was posed a question internally, which was, what are you looking for, Marilyn? Are you looking for a better life, or are you looking to make life better? And then it was the realization that if I was looking for a better life, Nigeria was probably the last place that I'm supposed to be. But if I was looking to make life better, then no matter where I go, Nigeria was one place that will give me the opportunity to really be able to make life better. So don't get me wrong, I still look forward to being able to travel the world, work outside of Nigeria, but I know that part of the work that we all need to do is somehow to be able to build this country. And one of the quotes that inspires and moves me is the quote by Mother Teresa that says, if there must be war, let it be in my time so that my children may know peace. That quote is so personal to me because it moves me in my core. To say this battle is not for me and you alone, it's because we are looking at the future generations. And part of why we are where we are as a country is because Nigeria is so blessed. I'm not going to talk about natural resources. I'm going to talk about just the human resources because all of us here are HR professionals. and Nigeria, the human capital horsepower is global quality. We have all it takes to really build up this country. And I do think that if every one of us in our little spheres of activity, if we try to be the best that we can be, if we try to bring our true authentic self, if we try to silence the voice of society that pushes us to do things that are ignoble, all in the name of making money. And if we say, look, I would rather be poor, for example, and have a good name where I don't compromise on my integrity, than have all the money in the world and I've compromised. And if we go back to some of those fundamentals—
Apparently, you have to come back to this event next year. Next year, we're bringing you back because we're bringing you back here next year. You're muted. You're muted. So I think you're muted. So at this point,
maybe you muted me. Maybe I'm talking too much.
No, we're bringing you back next year.
But honestly, I'm just going to wrap up by saying thank you so much, Linda. It's been a great opportunity. And to my co-panelists, an honor, Fofo. Salute for your keynote address. Really honored. Thank you, guys.
All right. Thank you so much. I mean, just very engaging, enlightening, and I've learned a lot speaking to all of you. So at this point, we will take the vote of thanks. I just want to say thank you to all the speakers, the panelists, the audience, and everyone on the team that has made this a success. Thanks to our sponsors, Flutterwave and GB Foods Africa, and our media partners, Business Day, Nairametrics, the Work Booth. And there's something I always like to do when I'm organizing an event. I always thank myself. I am the convener of Doing Business in Nigeria conference. So I'd like to say thank you to Linda Uneze, myself, and to my business for partnering with me. You're muted, Marilyn. So thank you all, our speakers. Until we see you again next year physically. Have a good day. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Well done, Linda.
Well done.